Hey guys, welcome to my Samoan language instruction on possessive pronouns. In my last video, I told you that this is going to be one of the most difficult concepts in the course. I would like you to come into this video with the mentality that it is going to be difficult, but I don't want you to be overwhelmed with the complexity of this topic, okay? You can master this topic with hard work, determination, and perseverance. It's not going to happen overnight, but as you continue to progress and work on it, you'll be able to improve. And the way that you'll improve is you'll watch this video, you'll review it, you'll come in contact with possessive pronouns as you speak to native speakers and as you read Samoan. And the more you come in contact with these items and this topic in Samoan, the more that you'll be able to see the contrast between the native speaker's way of saying it and the way that you're saying it. And then you'll be able to replace the correct version and put that into your Samoan repertoire in similar settings that the way you heard it as the native said it, okay? So before we get started, I would like you to work on this vocabulary, write these down, and work on them in a timely manner. So before I get started, possessive pronouns are nothing new. That's the one thing that's really nice about possessive pronouns. The hard thing about possessive pronouns is you're taking a bunch of topics that we've covered already, so it is going to be in a review, and you combine them to create possessive pronouns. So what I'm saying is from my Basic Grammar 1 video, we had these things called articles or determiners, and these are things like lay, say, ni, and a lack of an article. And those, if you don't remember, are things that determine plurality. So determiners determine plurality. And if you don't remember this, I encourage you to go back to my Basic Grammar 1 video and review that now. So, and another thing about determiners is they also determine if something is specific or non-specific. And other words for those are specific could also mean definite, and non-specific could also be indefinite. And so those are probably the more grammatically correct terms to use. So you take these determiners with our possessive pronouns. So if I want to make something singular and specific, then I use the first one, I just use this lay. I use that concept. If I want to do something singular and non-specific, then I use the say. And if I want to do something that's plural and non-specific, then I do the ni. And if I want to do something that's plural and specific, then I take away the article altogether. Then I take those concepts, so right there, I take those concepts and I include them or I combine them with an o or an ah. So we learned that in our last video, the o versus ah video. If you haven't reviewed that much or if you haven't watched it at all, I'd also encourage you to pause the video, go back to that video, review that a bunch, because you're going to need that material to be able to understand these possessive pronouns. So I take these two principles and I combine them. And then I also take the appropriate descriptive pronoun and put those things together. So I basically take the determiners and I combine it with an o and ah, and then I include that with the appropriate descriptive pronoun. Also, you'll note that I have an asterisk right here with my descriptive, and it basically is leading to this statement right here, that sometimes emphatic pronouns can also be used in forming possessive pronouns. So most often it's going to be the descriptive pronoun that's used, but sometimes you'll see emphatic pronouns used with these determiners and the o and ah. Okay? So basically, before I get started, also another disclaimer is singular pronouns do not follow this. They are very close, but they have a little bit of an exception, and we'll talk that at the bottom of this slide. But so we're talking about dual and plural pronouns. So the pronouns that include two people and the pronouns that include three or more people. And so what I do is I take my determiners, that's these things, and then I combine those with an o and an ah, depending on the item that's being possessed. If it falls under an O class rule, then I use the O. If it falls under an A class, I use the A. And then I combine those things with the appropriate descriptive pronoun in most cases. So, for example, let's use the inclusive version of we and us. So, we and us, these are pronouns. And these are pronouns that are talking about a group of people. These aren't talking about something that's being possessed. The equivalent version of a pronoun that is the possessive form of we and us is our. So you're talking about the group's possession. So you're talking about we or us's thing. Okay, so you're talking about the items of us or the items of we. That kind of sounds funny. So you say our things. Okay, so we're talking about our. So these things are not equivalent to our, but we and us is the equivalent to the, our is the equivalent possessive pronoun to we and us, if that makes sense. You're talking about the groups that you're including, the we or us group. You're talking about your items, okay? So that was it probably took a little bit too long explaining that, but basically we're trying to take we're trying to figure out how to say our in Samoan. So let's just remember, we and us in Samoan, in the descriptive format, let's just use the plural version and the inclusive. So I'm using a T right here, so that's inclusive. So tato is the version of we or us. So it's going to look a lot like we or us, but I include those determiners and an O and A before that. So let's say I'm talking about our house. Our house. So house falls under which rule? Is it an O class or an A class? Well, if you remember, and if you watched my video from the last video, you'll remember that a house, it falls under the O class. So I have an O right there, and then I use the tato right here. Then I also need to remember which determiner to use. Do we have a singular house or a plural amount of houses? Well, most people have a singular amount of houses, so then that narrows it down to lay or say. And then, is it a specific house that you own or a non-specific house? Do you just own some random house, or is it a specific house that you go back to each time? Well, it's a specific house, so I'm going to use the L. So I use this L right here to use the lay. I use the principles of lay, okay? So lo tato, and then let's say I said fale, is our singular and specific house, okay? So that is one version that we could say our house, okay? So let's say, let's use another version of our. Let's use one that's more plural. Let's use all of your books. So let's say all of your books. So we're saying your plural. Let's do the 3+ version again. And let's say books. So let's say we're talking about math books. So math books are a specific amount, they're a specific set of books. And so the way that I would translate this is I wouldn't use the ni. This is the plural version of non-specific things. I would just do the lack of an article or a determiner. So I don't put a determiner in, and that just indicates that I'm talking about a specific plural amount of books in this case. So all we need to do is use the appropriate O or A. So do books fall under an O class rule, or do they fall under an A class rule? Well, if you remember from my last video, they fall under the A class rule. So again, I don't use ni, so I just use the lack of an article right here. So I just put the A because books fall under A. And then I put the appropriate descriptive pronoun for your 3+. And if you remember that, that's to, ato, tusi. So let's say I want to say bring, this is going to go over my words, bring your 3+ people books. So ao mai atotusi would be the equivalent to bring y'all's books or you 3+'s books, okay? So we're starting to be able to learn how to put these together. I'm not going to go over every version of doing this, but this is just to kind of show you how you form these possessive pronouns. And I hope that this is kind of making sense, but we're going to move on. We're going to move to the singular set of possessive pronouns, and let's just go to that. So basically, singular pronouns follow the same table almost, so they have the articles. I forgot to have this article right here in that. It was more because of a lack of space. So you can still use the lack of an article to signify specific amount of plural things. And then you combine it with the O and A again, and then I use a glottal stop U for my, I use a U for your singular, and then I use a na for his, her, or its. So one way that I could say My singular is I could use this L right here, and then I could use this O, and I could use this glottal stop U. So that would look a lot like lo'u. So you've seen this. You've seen lo'u before, and this is a lot of times when someone asks you what your name is. They say, hey, what's your name? And you say, my name is Colin. O lo'u, ingoa, o, and then you say your name. So this lo'u right here is a possessive pronoun that you didn't even know that you were working on. Well, you probably knew that it was a possessive pronoun, but you didn't know the rules. And now you're saying, okay, I use this L right here. I'm talking right here. I use this L because I have a singular and specific name. I use the O right here because my O, I have no power over that. My name was given to me by my parents. I wasn't able to choose that. Well, most people weren't able to choose their names. You can legally change your name, but that doesn't happen a lot in Samoa. And then a glottal stop U, I'm talking right here, that's just to say my. Okay, that's the exception. You don't use the descriptive pronoun in that case like you do in the dual and plural pronouns, but the glottal stop U is the exception. So you have already worked on this, but let's also do your. What is your name? I do the L, then I do the O, and then I do the U right here. And that's when I ask, what is your name? This is a good way of saying, what is your name? And so you say, O I lo suafa. So you'll remember this way back at the beginning of the course. And now you know that when I say the L right here, it's because the person that you're talking to has a singular and specific name. They don't just have some random name, so it's not non-specific. Then the O, again, a name falls under O class. They had no power in choosing that name. And then a U is because the exception. Okay? So let's do one more step. So this is just one way of saying my and your. Let's do one way of doing his or her. So let's do his or her name. So now all I just do is I take those same principles, because if I said his name is, then I would say oh, and then I would say Lona. And the reason I would say Lona is right here is because that person has a singular specific name. Then the O, because the name falls under the O class rule, and the na, because that's for the his or hers or its. That's the exception to, instead of just placing the descriptive pronoun. So Olona suafa o, and then you could say Olona suafa o Jim, o Simi. Or you could say her name is Rachel, Olona suafa o Rachel, or something to that effect. So this is some ways that you combine your possessive pronouns. You take these rules and you combine them, and it makes a possessive pronoun. So I know I threw a lot of material at you, and this is very dense. And so I would like you to pause the video, whether you feel like you're getting the concept or not, rewatch it from the beginning, and I promise you the second time around you're going to pick up some things that you didn't. Okay, so now let's kind of just go over, this is 8 different ways to say my. So this is the thing that makes possessive pronouns hard. So I just want to kind of go over some of these with you. So lo'u is this first one. We kind of went over that with name, and that's my, but that's the singular version of my. That's the specific version of my because of the L, and then you're possessing something that falls under an O class, like a name. Okay, so then we move on to la'u. This is my, but this is the singular version of my, and this is also specific because of the L, but then you're possessing something that falls under the A class, and that's something like a watch or a book, something that you possess and that you have power over, or you have authority over that thing. So, and there's also other rules, but we're just trying to be as simple as possible. Also, if you have forgotten the O and A class rules, watch my last video, O versus A. Okay, so let's kind of go over these next ones. So so'u and sa'u. So these are both the singular and non-specific. These are both singular and non-specific because of the S. The S makes it singular, but then it also makes it non-specific. And then again, you could have something that's O or a, you're possessing something that falls under the o or a class rules. Okay, so let's go over to the more plural version. So ou and au, these are plural. These are both plural and specific because I don't have an article at all. I'm taking away that L or that S, and that makes it specific. And then again, you can have something that falls under the o and a class rules. And then also, if I wanted to make something plural and non-specific, then I throw a ni on before that, and then I also take away the article, so it would be ni ou or ni au. And this is my plural and non-specific. And again, you can have things that you're possessing that are plural and non-specific that fall under the o and a class rules. So let's just take the possession book. You can possess the thing, you can possess books or a book. So I'm taking the possession book and I'm using appropriate possessive pronouns with that. So if I wanted to say bring my specific book, then it would be au mai la utusi right here. And the reason why I'm saying la utusi is because a book falls under a class rules. So book is in the a class rule. So in every possessive pronoun, I will always have an a. And then I needed the right determiner, determine the plurality and if that thing's specific or non-specific. And so in this case, I'm clarifying that I want a specific book, so I use that L, so that L right there makes it singular and specific. Okay, so let's say bring my non-specific book. Again, this is a singular item. Bring my non-specific singular book. And so in this case, I will use an S, and so I say au mai sa utusi. So S, again, it makes it singular, but then it makes it non-specific. So just bring me any book. I just want any book to read. Bring my book. That it doesn't have to be a specific book. But if you were working on your math, bring my math book, then you would say la utusi matematica, or something to that effect. Okay, so then let's say the plural versions of these bring my specific books. So these are the plural, and if I wanted the specific version of that, then I use au. Because I'm taking away the article, it makes it specific amount of a plural thing. So in this case, a specific amount of books. Bring my math books. So au mai au tusi matematica in this case. And then let's say you want to have them bring some, it doesn't really matter which books, just any books. Then you would say au mai ni au tusi, and these are the non-specific plural version way of saying my possessive pronouns. Okay, so this is 8 different ways. Again, I don't want you to become overwhelmed with this subject, but let's move on. And if you do need anything to review, I encourage you again to pause the video and rewind to whatever is not completely making sense. So this is the chart of possessive pronouns, and this is only for possessive and specific. Okay, so the reason why there's singular and specific possessive pronouns is because they have an L in front of all of them. And so you'll note that we already talked about my. We talked about my as either being lo'u or la'u, and there's different versions of my, but this is the singular and specific. And then it depends on what thing that you're possessing, you use the o or a. So it could be lo'u or la'u in the singular and specific. And then basically what I want to just say with your is you could say your is the most closely related to my in the Samoan language. So if you just took away all of these glottal stops right here, so if I took away this glottal stop, sorry, it's a little hard to get it right on the dot, but if you took away all these glottal stops and you did that, then all of these would be like, oh, whoops. So this would turn into, I can't do that first one, so this would turn into, instead of la'u, it would turn into lao, so this would be your, and then all of these rules would apply as well. So it would be singular, specific, A class. And if you said so, then this would be, again, your, singular, non-specific, O. And let's just say, instead of bring my books, bring your books, then you just take away all these glottal stops too, and then this should be able to help you know the exact same thing. You use the same rules as you were using in the my, you just take away the glottal stop. Okay, so bring your specific book would be au mai lau tusi, and bring your non-specific book would be ao mai sautusi, and bring your specific books would be ao mai autusi, and bring your non-specific books would be ao mai ni autusi. Okay, so hopefully this kind of helped, that realizing that your and my are very closely related. All of the rules overlap. You just take away the glottal in the middle of the A or O and then the U, and you can use the same principles. Okay, so then you can do the same principles with that. Instead of the my, you can do his, her, or its, and instead of just having the glottal stop U, you'll have the na at the end. So again, you could say bring his or her books, so his or her books, you could take all those out, and then instead of these glottal stop U's, okay, sorry, that last part, instead of these glottal stop U's, instead of that, you'll just add a na on the end. So bring his or her specific books would be ao mai lana tusi, or sorry, that his or her specific book, and then bring his or her non-specific would be ao mai sana tusi. Bring his or her specific books would be ao mai na tusi, and then, or sorry, this would be ana tusi. So this right here, I forgot to say this A right here. So to bring his or her specific books would be ao mai ana tusi, and then bring his or her non-specific books would be ao mai ni ana tusi. Okay, so hopefully you're able to overlap those same principles and just say, okay, my, his, her, its, and your, those first column of pronouns, the singular pronouns, all have the same principles as what we talked about. And I need to use my pen. These all have the same principles as that last slide I was just talking about. You can just take out the glottal stop U, and then you apply what the one has. So this would just, you add a U instead of that glottal, and this one right here, you add an A instead of the glottal U as well. So this last slide, you should be able to apply it to all of the singular possessive pronouns. You just take out the glottal stop U for your and his, her, and its. Okay, so then again, the dual and plural pronouns, the only difference is, instead of, if you don't want singular and specific, if you don't want the singular and specific versions of these, then you replace the L. You replace this L with an S for if you want it to make it singular and non-specific. You make all those S. So instead of lo or lata for yours and mine, singular and specific item, then you could say so or sa ta. This would be the singular non-specific thing of yours and mine. And then you do that with everything to make it singular and non-specific. You just replace all the L's with S's. And let's say you want to make things plural and specific. So instead of just singular, you would make everything plural. So you just take away all of these L's, and that just would do the trick. You just take all those L's away, and that would make everything plural and specific. And then if you want to do singular and non-specific, so I'm taking that away as well. So it'd be plural and non-specific. Then you would take all those L's away, and then you'd add a ni in front of it. So let's say if I wanted to do this one, the exclusive version of 3 or more people, you're excluding the person that you're talking to, ours, not your house, for example. And let's say you had a plural amount of non-specific houses. Let's say you just bought up a bunch of random houses. Then you would say ni o mato fale, okay? And this is one way that you could do it, but then once they become a little bit more closely related to you and they weren't so random, then you could take away this ni, and that would make it more of a specific amount of houses that you owned. Okay, so this is how you combine and you take these principles that you've learned in the past, you take the determiners that we've learned in the past, and you take the O versus A rule that we talked about in the last video, and then you include the descriptive pronoun, okay? And in some cases, you do see the emphatic pronoun, and I'm going to leave a link that has this chart, but it has a comprehensive list of all of these. Well, for the most part, the version that he does, he had a blog post. I like the way that he put it. It has a lot of it. It's comprehensive. The only thing is he, instead of having these descriptive pronouns like ta, ma, lua, la, tato, mato, to, lato. Well, actually, in the plural, those are all the same. But in the dual, instead of having the descriptive forms, he has the emphatic forms. And that's okay. You'll see those sometimes, but you won't see them as often. So when you do visit that link, if you do, just remember that most of the time when you see the lower la ta, he'll have it as lower la ta ua, and he'll have it as lower la ma ua, and he'll have it as lower la olua, and he'll have it as lower la la ua. He'll have it in those versions, and you do see it in those versions sometimes, and I'm going to talk about that in the next slide just a little bit. But again, you see it more often in the descriptive pronouns, in my opinion, but we're going to talk about one of those examples right now. So basically, I would like you to pause the video at this point, read this, and see if you can translate this. And there's going to be some principles in here that I don't think you know because we haven't gone over them. But translate as much as you can, because I feel like this is a very translatable sentence. A lot of times in Samoan you won't understand everything, but try to put together everything that you do know. So pause the video, try to translate this. Okay, so if we took this, then we'll say, okay, so sa, that's in the past at some time, but it wasn't clear if it was done at a specific time. And then amata is start. And honestly, this sentence I found from a magazine. So it could be just like this, or it could be amata ina. You could do it in one of the two ways. The amata ina would probably be the more appropriate way, because most often when you start something in the past, you'll be able to see the entirety or the totality of that verb being completed. And in this case, you can see the beginning and the end of you starting that job that we're going to be talking about in just a second. You can see the totality of the verb. So this would probably be the more appropriate version, the amata ina that I've written out. But you could also say amata, and that would just mean you're saying a sentence where you're seeing the totality. So it'd be like, as I was working at the bank, then it'd be more of a sentence like that. You were seeing the action of you doing it rather than the totality of it. And if that doesn't make sense, then you need to go back to my imperfective versus perfective forms videos and review that. Okay, so sa amata ina or amata, and then this is where you'll see that exception. You'll see the la ma'ua. I saw this. It took me about 20 minutes. I wasn't exactly sure on how to present the emphatic pronouns being used in the possessive form. So I just thought, well, I'll start reading in Samoan and I'll see if I can find one of these emphatic pronouns being used in a possessive form. And this is the sentence that I came across, and I wanted to share it with you because I feel like it's a real world scenario. I came across this. It wasn't just me just throwing it in there. So Sa'amata la ma'ua. So what is this saying? This L again, let me get my pen. My L, that's saying it's something that's singular and specific. And then an A is something that I have authority over. In most cases, it follows an A class rule. And then the ma'ua is an emphatic pronoun that's exclusive, but it's dual. It's saying she and I or he and I. When is our thing? We've started our thing. And the thing that we've started is this whai ngā luenga. So the whai ngā luenga is the thing that you're starting. And that's job, if you don't know. You should probably have that one memorized. So la ma'ua whai ngā luenga, it translates to our singular and specific job because of this L. Okay? And the A is because job falls under the A-class rules. And if you can't remember, then it's in my last video, and that is under the A-class rules. Okay, and that's in the A-class rules because you have, it's actually an A1B. It's because you are working on something. It's your work. Okay, so let's just so what we said so far is we started our job. Okay, that's basically all we know so far. So we exclusive, us two, he and I or she and I started our job. That's all we don't. We don't even know if it's a he and I or a she and I because of we haven't heard the context before this. It would have been appropriate to have added the thing before this, but I'm just trying to teach you grammar principles. So for this point, let's just say she and I started our job, and then this next part would be ile fale tupue. So that would be at the fale tupe. Fale is a house or building, and tupe is money. So this is at the bank. And then we have a comma, so we're kind of starting over a new sentence. So this ma right here, it'll probably mean and. It could be with, and that's something that we haven't talked about. So let's just say it means and in this case. So sa, that's a past tense marker again. And then mawa, this is get or receive. So, and in the past we gained or we received. Okay. And then here's our possessive pronoun again. So ni'ama. So the ni, that makes it non-specific. Then the a, that just say whatever that I'm owning or possessing is under the a class rule. And then ma, in this case, it would be appropriate to have an, what is that called again? To have a macron. Sorry, I don't know why I had a brain cramp right there. So this right here is a macron. So and when I read this, it has no macron, so I left it without a macron. And that's something that you need to be able to recognize is as you read Samoan, is this a ma that means and or with, or is it a ma that means us two exclusive for dual? Okay, and in this case, this is a possessive pronoun. So I have right here again, I have something that makes it a plural amount of things that's non-specific, and the thing that I'm possessing is it follows an A class rule, and then the ma is his or her thing that we own, and it's also exclusive to the person that we're talking to. And then woe is the thing that follows it. So woe, what is woe? Woe, this right here means friends. So our friends. So in that time, and we got some good friends because the lay is the thing that follows it. So woe, the lay, and then we got some good friends is what this sentence says. And then this next principle is something I haven't taught to you, and we won't go over it for a while. But in this case, it's just a version of who. Oe is a version of who. And then na taliaina. Na is a past tense marker. Who. And then taliaina, this is the perfective form of saying accepted. Who accepted? Because we had a past tense marker right before that. So it's accepted. I ma'ua, this is just us now. So this is I ma'ua, and this is the exclusive dual version of us. And again, I don't have a macron over that A, and I don't have a glottal stop in between that U. So it does look a lot like maua. It looks like this verb over here that looks like maua. And in this case, it's not. That's the thing that's hard about Samoan, especially when you read, is you just have to be able to read it a lot to be able to understand when something is one thing versus the other. And because I've been around Samoan, I can pick this up. But you also need to read as much as you can so you can get to that point. So you can start to realize that it's not always going to be given to you in this form. It'll probably be more often given to you in that form. And then the last thing is the prepositional phrase in this sentence. And this is ilana taimi, at that time. So that is the way that we translate that sentence. It took a while, but I feel like it was a good usage of time because you were able to work on it together with me. And if you understood everything, then you were able to skip ahead and not have to worry about it. I'm not going to go over all of these because of time, but I would like you to pause the video and go over these sentences and ask yourself, why did I use the possessive pronoun that I did? And what you need to remember is, okay, the thing that's being possessed, does that follow? So this penitala, that means pencil. So pencil, does that fall under an O class rule or an A class rule? And if you can't remember, go back to my last video, and from those rules, determine with your best judgment if it's an O or A. And then you say, okay, pencil, it follows an A class rule, so I use that. And then I also need to use, okay, is it a singular or specific thing that I'm talking about, or is it a plural amount of things that I'm talking about? And it's my thing, so it's singular. Oh, sorry, pencil. Pencil is singular. There's no S on the end, so it's a singular thing. And then I'm talking about any one of them. I clarify that it's any one, so I don't need the la'u. I need a sa'u, okay? And in the next one, a specific razor, I would use la'u tafi instead of sa'u. And so think about things in that way, and I promise that you'll be able to get these as you ponder about them. Don't just take my word. Try to figure out, okay, why did he use Lona right here for her? And why did he say so for your? And why did he say sana for his? And why did he say a'u for my? Okay, in this sentence, it's yes, I do have children, but it's my children. Yes, I have my children. A'u is mine. Okay? So just pause this video and figure out why I used the possessive pronoun that I did. Okay? Now I'm giving you some of your own sentences. I would like you to again pause the video and try to work on these sentences on your own using the correct possessive pronoun. So pause the video and do that now. Okay, so here are the answers. Again, I'm not going to go over all of these because of time, but I would like you to ask yourself, okay, why did he use so lua ta'avale? So I'm talking about two of yours cars. So you two's car. So basically, so why did I use so lua? So lua is because your two car. So that is the appropriate descriptive pronoun. So for that, I do that. Why did I use an S? Well, it's not clear or not if I have a car. I don't know if you have a car or not, so I can't talk about a specific car. So if it's not clear if they have something or not, then use S. Okay? Then O is something that falls under the O class rules. And car follows the O class rules. Okay? So in their response, they'll say the same thing. They'll say, no, we don't have a car, so they'll say so again. And then instead of lua, they're not talking about your two, they're talking about exclusive his and my car or exclusive we dual form. So they're saying so ma ta'avale. They don't have a specific car, so they can't have a specific car, so they use S. They have a non-specific. They don't have a non-specific. Sorry, they don't have a car, so that in itself makes it non-specific because there's no specific thing to have in this case. So if it's unclear if they have something or not, or if you don't have something, then you use S. Okay? So, and then I would like you to ask yourself, why did I use the other possessive pronouns that I did? Okay, so here are some questions. Olo'u no fusimi I. Is it sana, sona, lana, or lona fale? And then pause the video and work on these 4 questions and use the appropriate possessive pronoun. Okay, I hope you pause. Here's the next 4. And again, pause the video, work on these, and use the correct possessive pronoun. Okay, I hope you pause. Here are the answers. So, olo'u no fusimi I lona fale. Why did I use lona? Well, lona, he has a specific and singular house, so I use L, so I need to use L because of that. And then, does house fall under O or A class rules? Well, it falls under O class rules. And then his is ended off with a na, so lona fale. All right, so number 2, samanaya lana launga. Okay, so he said a specific and singular speech, so I use that L again. And then speech, does that fall under O or A class rules? Well, he has power over that speech, so you'll use an A. And then to finish off with his speech, you say na. Okay, let's move on to a toatele blank wo. So in this case, toatele, this means toa is an indicator of an amount of people, and then tele means a lot of people. So this together means a lot of people. And then, so that makes it something that's plural, so I can't use either L or S. L is no, I can't use that. S, I can't use that because those are my those are my singular determiners. So I have to use a lack of a determiner or ni. And do I have a specific amount of friends, or does he have a specific amount of friends, or is it unspecific? Well, in this case, he does have, you're making a statement right here. You're not asking a question. So you're saying he does have a lot of friends, and those are a specific amount of friends. They're not just random people. You can't have random friends. You can have random acquaintances, but in this case, you can't have random friends. So you say ana, so you don't use the ni. So I don't use the ni because I have a specific amount of friends. And I use a because wo follows the A-class rules. Okay? So moving on to number 4. Number 4 is a lua blank ona. Sorry, a lua blank ta'avali. It's ona because I have 2 cars. I have two cars. I can't. That's not singular. So again, I can't use my L or S determiner. And then do I have a random amount of cars, or do I have a specific amount of cars? Well, you can't have random amount of cars. You have to have a specific amount of cars. So I don't have a ni again. Okay, there's no ni. And then does ta'avale follow O or A class rules? Well, it follows O class rules, so that's why I use ona. Okay, so moving on to the last 4. We're going to try to get through these quickly because of the length of the video. So pe iai, so olua fale. It's not clear if they have a house or not, so you say S. This is a question. So it's not clear if they have a house or not, but it would and so you're not certain if they have a single amount of houses, so you use S. And then houses fall under O class rules. And then this is one of those that you use emphatic pronouns. And I could have just said lua, but in this case I wanted to say o lua. Okay, so you can interchange those, but again, you'll probably see the descriptive formats more than you'll see the emphatic and the possessive pronouns. Okay, so aumai, lo la, fa'amalu, fa'amolimoli. Okay, so fa'amalu, this is an umbrella, and if you don't remember, umbrella follows, it's one of those O class rules because it covers it dominates your body. Okay, so basically it goes over you. It's in my O2C rule. And so basically I want you to remember lo, they have a single amount of a umbrella. And then la, there's 2 of them that have a single amount of umbrellas. Okay, so they each have 1 umbrella, so that's why you use L, and they both have a specific umbrella, so that's why you use L. O follows the O class rules because of fa'amalu, and then la is because there's 2 of them that have the umbrella. Okay, then moving on to a lianga niolato maufau and lianga olato maufau. So you could have said either one of those 2. And that's just depending on context. So ni olato maufau. They're both O cases. This is when they have thoughts. Excuse me. This is when you're saying their thoughts are bad. Like it's just not. You're not talking a specific amount of thoughts. It's just whenever they speak or whenever you think that they're thinking, they're just bad. Okay. But then when you're talking about, oh man, what they said, their thoughts on that specific item, then you would take away the ni and you just use O. And then the same thing with this. So if you wanted to say, I don't have any talents at all, so in that case you're not talking about any specific amount of talents because it's unsure whether you have talents or not. And so eleaini a utaleni, so this would probably be the one that you use more often. And then if you were talking about a specific thing like playing the piano, you could say Eliaya utaleni according to that piano, or with that piano. I don't have any talent with a piano. Okay, so I hope this video helped. Sorry for the length of this video. I know it was long, but I feel like it'll help you. So this is one of those complex items. Review it over and over. Talk Samoan. Listen to how they speak and improve. And I encourage that this video and those using it and in speech and listening that you'll improve. So keep watching it, review this video often, and tofa soifua.